left, right.
Yo, this is episode 97 of SipTalk coming at you from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Enjoy this episode about religion, one we've held off on for a long time. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, we are live. James, this is episode 97.
Getting there. What are we going to do for 100?
Say we celebrate with a drink. What do you think?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like our style.
Cheers to that. My name is Justin DiGiulio. I am live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. James, the Bosnian Boswell, joining from Charleston, South Carolina. James, now that we're live, share with us what you're drinking.
I'm sticking with the Busch Ice, but I've also got what I call a double whiskey sour, and it's going to be, I got some scotch, I got some bourbon, some lemon juice, and I use maple syrup to sweeten it all up. And then I put a little bit of soda water in it too.
All right, nice, just to open it up a little bit.
Yep.
I've got a Yingling. I think is that America's oldest brewery?
That's what they say.
That's on the bottom. And I'm relaxed. I'm out here in my sister's backyard. There's a little pool about 9 inches behind my chair, so don't let me get up too fast. Probably literally once we wrap this episode of the podcast, I'm just going to stand up and right in the shallow end over here. So we're talking about religion today, which I think is a pretty interesting topic because people can't have talks about religion. And I think that's really what I want to get to the bottom of with this conversation about religion, is the fact that you can't have a conversation with anybody who disagrees with you. It's just end of conversation. So we have a lot of problems in the world because of religion, a lot of disagreements, a lot of family disagreements. A lot of people can't get married because of religion. I have seen religion cause a lot of issues in my lifetime. And I would say, on the overall scale, I haven't seen many positives. So, and I'm not discounting that there are not positives in religion, because I think both you and I can acknowledge probably a long checklist of positives that come from religion. But I want to have a real discussion. I know you're not religious. I'm not religious. Yet I grew up in a more religious household than you did. I just want to have a conversation about that. Are you got some data you're ready to share?
No data yet, but I think so. To your first point about people not talking about religion, that's kind of me. Where whenever anybody brings up religion to me, I don't want to have that conversation because, like, I'm not religious at all. And when people say, "Oh, so you must be atheist or agnostic," I say, "No. Draw a circle with religion, and then draw another circle, and that's me. Like, it doesn't touch at all." And like atheism and agnosticism are religions in some respect, where you say, I have beliefs. As an atheist, you say there is no God. Or as an agnostic, you say, I don't know what to believe, but I do believe. I believe that there's something there, but I don't know what it is. For me, I say all those discussions are just outside my realm of interest. Largely because I look at religion as something that it can't be tested. Nothing can be proved with religion. And so I look at any kind of statement that cannot be proven as not worthy of debate, because there's no way for anyone to be right.
Well, that's a very good point. And we have a comment on TikTok from Gen X girl that says people don't know how to respectfully disagree.
True.
But again, what they're agreeing on, what you just said, is that there's no test to this. Nobody is going to be right at the end of the day. I just think that we can draw certain conclusions as rational people as long as we're having a rational conversation. It doesn't bode well for religion. Got a comment here about the train. I didn't realize it. I haven't seen a train the entire time I've been down here, but apparently there's some type of train somewhere nearby. My biggest fear out here, for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm in Florida visiting with my sister. I'm just afraid of like some giant spiders or some fucking scorpions or something just crawling up underneath my feet because I'm kind of sitting here in the dark by the pool. A cat just ran by like 40 seconds ago. She doesn't have a cat, and we're in her fenced-in backyard, so who knows what gets in here. Cat's hunting something. Now, oh man, that train. So I'd like that you haven't really chosen a belief system on religion, except that it's something you're not really interested in. But I think this kind of traditional, I don't know anybody that I know of that goes to church on a regular basis like I did when I was a kid. Do you know anybody that religiously goes to church like every Sunday?
Those cardboard boxes are religiously stacked up in your room. I'm getting rid of one per week. I had four. Like the top one is empty. The one below that is all posters. And then there's two boxes down there. I had like 5, and I'm down to like 2.5.
Not the posters. That one you're saving to light on fire, right? For that bonfire in the backyard?
No, I'm deciding what I want to do with the posters. I don't know if I like the bare walls.
We like the bare walls. We like the bare walls. All right, let me get back into the religious mindset though.
Well, don't you have some people in your office that are not Christian, but I think you've got at least one guy in your office that's pretty devoutly Muslim.
I have. The one thing I love about my office, the one thing I love about New York City is you have this ability to you get like an intimate look at people's lives because we spend so much time around each other. And New York City is cool because people come from all over the place. And I think that's one of the biggest things about religion is that like people are just so faith-based, blindly faith-based in their own community. And then when you step out of it and you realize that somebody else is blindly faith-based in their community and they have faith in something that you don't, it should make you question. It really should make you question, what am I believing in faithfully with no evidence? Because they believe in something that's completely contradictory or to a degree contradictory to what I believe in, the same way I believe in what I believe in, faithfully. So without evidence based, or to the degree of evidence that I have, and they believe something completely different. Because we believe in different gods. People have a lot of different gods. But that's something that I realized leaving upstate New York in the suburban area that we grew up in, and then moving to South Carolina for a couple of years, and then moving to New York City. You get to see people who are culturally different and major different religious beliefs. And that's just along the East Coast of the United States, and the United States is small compared to a lot of the other countries and continents across the world that have completely different religious beliefs. So I don't know. I think moving gives you some perspective on other people's religions, which then should give you perspective on your own religion.
Yeah, real quick, let's check the comments, see if Rosh has anything for us, see what people are saying about this, because like when people try and start a conversation with religion with me, what I tell them is like I look at religion as something that's deeply personal and isn't really something that needs to be shared. I look at talking about religion in much the same way that like when someone starts talking about like in detail the things that they were doing with their significant other in bed the night before. I'm like, it's great. You do whatever you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody. But I don't want to hear about it.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, but in order for religion to perpetuate, there needs to be people talking about it. There needs to be people indoctrinating people into that religion. and people need to, someone just said in TikTok, it's within yourself. There's no need to go to church as long as you believe in what though? Because if there is no church, and there might be a church, but when enough generations of people don't go to it, there's no more church. And that's one of the biggest eye openers to me growing up in the Catholic Church, and then witnessing other churches, their demand for money, the fact that everything is gold plated, and that they're telling you have to give them a certain amount of your money, and that is baked into the religion, and kind of religion, almost this virus-esque ability to self perpetuate and self generate. The religion telling people that they can't use contraceptives, which is now being more and more allowed. Religion's telling people they have to shun the people that leave the religion. Like,
let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Should donations to church or whatever religion, should those be tax deductible as a charitable donation like they are right now?
Well,
do you think that's correct? Do you think that's right?
Well,
I know what the law says, but do you think it should be that way?
Well, a couple things. It depends on what the church is doing with the money, but it also looks at other charitable donations. Charitable donations are tax deductible. So if you're donating to like AIDS research or a homeless shelter or other kind of nonprofits, that should be tax deductible. Now, a church, again, and this is where it gets murky, because I think what you're goading me into is what good is a church doing other than self-perpetuating and building itself and retaining money to pay off lawsuits. I think all charitable donations, as long as the charity qualifies, now we're getting a bit deeper, but if the charity qualifies under whatever guidelines it needs to be a charity, then it should be tax deductible.
Okay, next question. Should the money that churches, that religious organizations earn or whatever, should they have to pay tax on it?
So here's something that I think is really, this is on a similar note. I don't know if this will answer your question correctly, but I look at these giant buildings in New York City, and I'm pretty sure they don't have to pay taxes. Or
like property tax?
Like, I'm pretty sure they don't have to pay certain taxes as a church. And to me, that's just wild that arbitrarily one religion would have to, in order to get set up, would have to pay a tax, and the other one can continue to exist. But I don't know the different laws about religion. I just know that if you're not Christian or Jewish, it's probably very difficult for you in New York City or the rest of the United States. It's so should they have to pay taxes, really being the root of your question? I think it would make sense for them to be paying a tax on their profit, just like any business. So I think to a large degree, a church is a lot like a business. And why? And I mean, just when you break, some people may disagree with my answer, but then the next question is, which religious institutions should have to pay taxes and which shouldn't?
Well, it has to be all or none.
Well, but then anybody can create a religion and create a church.
That's what some people do.
And that's where religion gets even more questionable.
That's kind of how Scientology started.
What's the history of Scientology?
Well, I think there's a quote by the guy who founded it, L. Ron Hubbard. He made a bet with somebody in a bar as to whether he could make more money selling his books, because he was a science fiction writer.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he could make more money selling books and being an author or founding a religion. And he made the bet that he'd be able to make more money founding a religion. And he was right.
Do we know that's quoted, or did somebody just say that? Because that's, just for the record, that's kind of how religion works.
Well, let's answer Lisa's question. Do either of you feel you become more or less religious as you've gotten older? For me, I've stayed the exact same. I grew up in a household where my mother was Jewish and my father was Catholic, and neither of them were religious people. Neither of them really bought into the religion that they were brought up in. And so the offer that they made to me was, if you have interest in religion, if you want to go to a church or a synagogue or wherever, we'll drive you there and we'll pick you up afterwards. And if you have friends that go to one, you can go to that as well. And so I was just like, I'm going to sleep in on a Sunday. And
well,
religion never took.
You and I had much different religious experiences, because I grew up First Communion, and then I don't know what's after baptism, First Communion, and then I was very
confirmation or something.
Confirmation, I think that's like when you're 16, but I feel like some other stuff has to happen in between. But for the most part, my family went to church every single Sunday, every holiday. I started helping my mother teaching religious education, and then I started being an altar boy type altar server. Never molested, never had any of those issues.
I love how whenever you say altar boy, you have to immediately follow it up with, yeah,
but that's happened. I think the funny thing is I never saw anything weird that happened. I guess we got lucky. But I think that it's a very common thing, which is wild. And when you say that, people just automatically assume that shit like that happened. But I was an altar boy, and then I ended up teaching religious education on my own. I ended up working in the church and just doing kind of general maintenance and groundskeeping and cleaning. And I was just super involved. My aunt is Jehovah's Witness. She used to come over once a week and read through Bible stories with us. And I think this is kind of where I have kind of pro feelings on religion. I think there's some really good lessons to be learned. And really good moral and ethical lessons. But I only have so much faith in the actual stories and the legitimacy to them. These are super old stories. They've been translated. They've been told for many, many, many years. And they're just not very believable. And I feel like there's something that you could do today and tell somebody it was magic. And 30 years from now, or 300 years from now, or 3,000 years from now, looking back at it, you can say, oh, I know exactly how they did it. But I feel like there's just kind of so much in the past reasons why things could be explained as miracles and as sacred, because we couldn't explain them at the time.
Well, so let me touch on that, because I think religion offers to people an explanation for things that they can't explain. When you've got questions about what's the purpose of life, where did we come from, where are we going, what's the history of the universe, how did all of those kinds of questions, those are pretty deep and existential questions that are also really hard to answer, and especially hard to answer correctly. And science can't really answer a lot of those for you, because either we don't know, or the question itself is impossible to know. Like, what's the purpose of life? What's your purpose on the planet? Science can't answer that for you, because it's not a scientific question. And where did we come from? And how did the universe come to be? Well, science can only get so far there. And so for people that have this kind of existential dread about those kinds of questions, religion offers a really handy out, because now you've just got a simple explanation. Whatever the religion says, but it's God created this, and God says your purpose is to do this. So you don't have to think. You can just follow the rules of the religion, and your questions are answered for you.
Well, look, think about it like this, and I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who I first heard this from. But you have religion throughout history as this ever-receding explanation for things that we do not yet know. So it's basically, when we don't know something, we point to it and say, well, that's miracle, or that's God. We can't explain it. My biggest issue, and then it's ever receding, because the more we find out, like the clouds aren't the heavens, the stars aren't the gods, the sun isn't a god, lightning isn't a god. We're learning more, and these are very simple examples, but there's a lot more to that. My biggest issue with religion is that rather than dig deeper, religion asks you to stop and say, have faith, it's just God. It's kind of, it's like the evolution versus creationalism.
Right. And the definition of faith is basically believing something without proof or the promise of proof.
Nor questioning it.
Right.
Having good faith or solid faith is that you don't question it.
And that's really, for me, that's probably the biggest hang up is someone asking me to just believe in something with no
it's a
proof
very
or promise thereof.
It's a very convenient premise for a religion.
Well, yeah, that's
Like that's like in a relationship, like, you're cheating on me, if you question the fact that I'm cheating on you. Like just for you to question it or like do some digging, snooping through my phone is cheating on me. Like that's, so you just need to let me do my own thing. It's kind of like pulling the wool over people's eyes.
It's easy to get people to just behave in ways that you want when they're not allowed to question your rules.
Well, yeah. I got some good feedback. Bring female perspective into your SIP talks. We will. Send me a DM. We'll bring you on. But a lot of people are saying they've lost faith, and that's why we're having these talks about the future. I'm calling them futurist conversations, and I think religion is really a really big one because church attendance is at an all-time low. And I think that says, it's less than 50%, which I thought was very high, actually, because I look at every single person I know. And if I had to say half of them go to church on a regular basis, I think that would be an incredibly high overestimate.
Sure. But remember where you are.
I'm in New York City. we have an intern. He's a great guy. I don't know much about his religion, but I know every day at 3:00 or so, he kneels down on the floor and prays. And I don't think anything of it. I think, that's a really good thing for him. But, and I had another guy, he used to excuse himself on Fridays to go to the mosque. Yeah, I don't really question that stuff, but we're talking like one or two out of a couple hundred people that work for my company. And religion isn't something we even consider on a resume.
No, but what I'm saying is that like in New York City, I'd say that New York City overall is less religious than the country as a whole. And if you go to certain communities, so Charleston is probably less religious than the state of South Carolina as a whole. And it's still like, a lot like my coworkers will talk about going to church and stuff like that pretty frequently. And
but is that more of like a traditional, like just something they're used to doing that's going to wear off as it becomes more and more?
No, most of the people in my office, our office is kind of split into two. We've got a whole bunch of people that are middle-aged that I would say like 45 to 55 years old, like 40 to 55. And then we have a whole bunch of people that are much younger, like I'd say 23 to 28. So it's like we've got younger people that are new hires and stuff like that. And then we've got older people that have been doing it for a long time. Now, the younger people tend not to talk about religion or express much about religion at all. And it's the older people in the office that talk about it. But I remember at the end of my internship, like two and a half years ago, when I was taking a break from the office while they waited to rehire me, my boss says like, I don't know if you're a religious person or whatever, but like you just have to think like everything's got a purpose and you'll be fine. Like you just have to trust. I was like, I'm not religious. That does nothing for me.
Well, but I'm so open to entertaining we're in a simulation conversation, which is just kind of this cyclic conversation, and it doesn't really go anywhere ever. But I'm open to entertaining that conversation about as much as I am religion, because it's impossible to prove.
Well, there's actually a philosophical paper about the question is like the brain in the vat argument of how do you prove that we're not all just a brain in a vat somewhere being stimulated to believe that we are experiencing what we are right now? Because what would the difference be?
But then you have this higher power type argument, and there wouldn't be much of a difference. I can't imagine.
If you send the right electrical impulses, if you're sufficiently in control enough to know exactly what the brain is doing, then you could simulate a brain to think that it's experiencing everything that I'm experiencing, you're experiencing, or whoever else is listening to us right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's kind of the cool thing about the argument about simulation theory. But then you get the greater point is that there is this higher power, there is this matrix level one up from us. That's religion. That's a lot of what religion is explaining, which to me, I think these religions are founded thousands of years ago. My thinking is that to some degree, they're onto something. I think a lot of it is like them just being really cloudy in their own way of trying to figure it out, like making up bullshit rules and things that don't make sense because they're trying to explain things they don't understand. But I think they're onto something with that. Everything has an order. We need to figure things out. We need to control civilization so that people aren't killing and eating each other. Yet in the name of our way of control, we're going to kill and eat the other people.
Well, I can't say I agree. One theory that I heard that I actually think that makes a lot of sense is that religion was a way early in civilization to be able to establish order and be able to get society to obey rules that were beneficial to society as a whole. And so, like, when you read things like Leviticus, which has kind of all the rules that you have to follow of do this, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
If you read those, take into context. Well, let me pause. Let's hit some comments real quick.
Yeah, go for
it. So Carol says that she doesn't believe that people in New York are less religious. It's just that there's more of a variety there.
Well,
I can't comment on it as well as you can.
Well, you have very dense areas that are very densely religious, especially with the Jewish community, where you go to these areas and you have the Hasidic Jewish population and no one else, and it's very easy to spot that because they dress in this conservative type way, and everyone is dressed exactly the same, which is a tenet in their religion. But then you have a lot of people who are young and woke and exposed to a lot of different religions, and they simply haven't chosen a religion, nor do you have to choose a religion. And their parents aren't that religious either. So, or maybe, because you have so many different cultures in New York, the parents have opposing views. Try growing up in a house where people believe two opposite things. You look at a plate and one parent says this plate's orange, the other parent says this plate's blue. And you're just like, oh shit, that's interesting. I guess I'm not going to have an opinion on this particular plate then. And you just kind of hands off the whole ordeal. In regards to the other comments, Debbie saying she's Catholic, but she lost faith when she got older. Very similar to me. Lisa saying it's interesting, a great point, referring to that religion asks you to believe in something with no proof.
I think that's kind of like the core aspect of religion, really.
Yeah, and we'd love to address some of your guys' questions on religion, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, let me continue with my thought about, so if you look at the Bible and you look at Leviticus, take into context when the Bible was written and where it was written. So it was in basically the Middle East. It was written by kind of a desert-faring people. Like, you're looking at Jerusalem area, where you've got the Dead Sea and then you've got desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the rules in Leviticus is not to eat shellfish. Well, if we take away the religion aspect and just analyze it, well, it's probably because people saw people that ate shellfish and they got really, really sick from it. And so look, we should just make a rule about not doing this because it makes people sick and you could die from it, because who wants to eat shellfish from the Dead Sea in the middle of a desert? Either the shellfish came from far away and they've gotten rotten, or they're coming from the Dead Sea. And then other ones not fornicating with someone who's related to you. It's well, we saw Bob and Sally, their brother and sister, and they did that, and we saw what their kids turned out like, and we're just gonna make a rule against that.
But I think that, and that's why these are really, really good points. But I mean, do you have any more?
So if you read through off the top of my head, those are the two that really stick out. But if you read through most or all of the rules in Leviticus, you can look at them as basically tips for surviving in a desert society of just health and well-being, because and just saying, you know what, that would have made a lot of sense back 2000 years ago about the hygiene rules, the diet rules, the types of things that you should and shouldn't do socially. Those are just ways to keep society cohesive. Same thing with like, don't covet thy neighbor's wife, don't steal, don't kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are really just societal rules that we're codifying into a religion. And so you can kind of separate those out and say, okay, so what are some good ideas to just make society work? Okay, do we need to have a justification for it beyond, hey, these lead to good results?
Well, apparently, yes. People can't. You ever heard of the Mr. Kim theory? A lot of salespeople use it. How the decision is never up to you. So if I'm engaged with a client and they're like, "What's the best you can do?" rather than me say 4,500, that's my lowest. They're going to say, "Well, can you do 4,000?" What I have to do is I have a Mr. Kim, and I say, "You know what? Let me go ask Mr. Kim." And then I go to the separate room where Mr. Kim is, and Mr. Kim never comes onto the stage. All right, Mr. Kim is always kind of the Wizard of Oz type character who's off in the shadows, and you always have this third party. So I wonder if religion, is using that aspect of psychology to sell their, don't trust me, Moses. I got these 10 commandments from a higher power. There was a burning bush.
Yeah. To answer the comments, Justin is currently in Fort Lauderdale.
I'm in my backyard doesn't look like this. There's a nice pool back here, which I'm about to fall into. I'm just doing my best to get the lighting in. And I'm visiting my sister. We need a regular reminder as to why the family all lives in different cities. So this is that reminder. Now, so far it's been really nice. We went out for a little dinner in Pompano Beach, which, from what I gathered, obviously went a little early so we could get back in time for the podcast. But from what I gathered, very old community. And we waited probably 10 minutes for the bartender to address us at the bar. And then she's like, what can I get you guys? And we're like, how about some menus? She came back more than 10 minutes later with the menus. And then she asked us, when she gave us the menus, do you know what you'd like? And I was thinking, like, you motherfucker, we've been here for 20 minutes. And you're asking us what we'd like, and we just asked you to bring us menus. Must
have been new.
It was just really bad quality service. There must have been 30 tables that were empty. They told us it was an hour-long wait, which, I mean, it was just I was waiting at the bar. Everybody got seated before me. I was still waiting on the drinks from the actual bar that we were waiting at, which was like 45 minutes just to get 4 drinks, which she only ever brought 3. But I was just thinking, if this was New York City, man, that somebody would have burned this place down. I looked at it, had 4.5 stars on Yelp, and it was a nice place. Don't get me wrong, food was good. The service people were very friendly, but the wait time, it's something going from New York City to anywhere else, because we just have such short attention span. But I don't think I was being unreasonable. I just think we were in a particular place where people.
No. That's not. It's not special to New York City, because like in Charleston, if you walk into a restaurant or wherever, you should be able to, like, you'll get someone's attention within a minute or two, unless they're super busy. But even then, they'll recognize you. Like, look, I'm really busy. I'll get to you in a second. Like, it doesn't matter.
On TikTok, I had one of my videos go a bit viral. I think almost right now it's at like 500,000 views, and it was, I didn't think it was. I usually put a TikTok ad every day, and usually just some kind of generic life advice, but this one was to acknowledge people. So when you walk into an elevator, there's somebody on the elevator, say hello. If you're working in an establishment and somebody walks up and stands in line, you say, I'll be with you in a minute. But you acknowledge people that are around you. One, it's going to make them feel good, but 2, it's everybody's existing kind of in their own world. So when somebody walks up and they don't get acknowledgement, it's almost like you fail to acknowledge that their world exists. And if they're looking at you for some type of at least acknowledgement, you're not helping yourself out either.
All right, we got a little off the rails. Let's get back to religion. Let's talk about, so we've kind of talked about why religion exists to some degree and why we, the two of us and some other people, have maybe moved away from it. But I guess the question that I would ask next is religion in the world an overall good or a bad thing right now? And I want to know what the comments have to say about this too.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching on TikTok or if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook, just quick comment. And if you're watching, you're listening, let us know real quick if you think religion is overall good or overall bad. And we're not saying that it doesn't, if you think it's overall bad, you don't have to say that good things don't come from religion. But
yeah, it's net score.
And I'll give you guys just a minute to let us know on that one. But what I was thinking about a minute ago was the acceptance of gay and non-straight people into a lot of religions, and how very slow religions are to come around to that, which I think is wild. Now, I think as a religion, it makes sense to have members and encourage your members to procreate, because that helps you indoctrinate more people into that religion.
Yeah, you can look at the Shaker religion, which was in the Northeast in like the 16 and 1700s, and then they had a rule against having sex, and it made it really hard for them to get new members.
But that's
the religion died out, and you don't have to look far as to why.
Well, and again, what I want to get away from is just some people that are so diehard in their religion that they become violent about it, or that there are wars about religion. But I had
well, what about this? What about people going on missionary trips and going to some place and trying to indoctrinate other people?
Well, if you're in New York City and you walk by certain corners where you have Jehovah's Witness or something like that trying to bring you under the religion, I think I'm not crazy about being sold anything. So I don't care if somebody's trying to get me to fill out a survey on the street.
Yeah, but what about like people traveling to like third world countries? First of all, we got some comments. Lisa's saying that it's overall good, that faith as a whole is healthy. Debbie's saying it's good in a way. But you know what? Hold on. We haven't gotten your answer on this one. Do you think overall religion is good or bad?
Okay, hold on. Let me just hit the TikTok comments real quick. Let's see. What I've learned once I was an adult was that religions were made to control humanity. Overall good with life lessons taught and character building. Here comes this train again. Overall good because it gives you hope. Someone said they're not a fan of it. I've not seen a train anytime that I've been here, so I don't know what's going on. And then it's too often used to control or judge others, and it depends on each person. Some need to believe in something, and that is why religion is fine. I'm going to go ahead and say that religion is overall bad. And don't get me wrong, I think there's some really good tenets of religion. I think there's some very good moral and life lessons. And I do think that aspects of religion are really, really, really important for society, and they shouldn't go away. But I think the way that we see religion now is the fucked up part. The fact that we can't all agree that there's some higher power and we don't know what it is. And we have lessons that we like. And we're going to teach those lessons. Instead, it's trying to indoctrinate people into your religion, trying to eliminate other religions. And I think the majority of the wars that have happened were religious based. And a lot
over the course of history, for sure.
Over the course of history, and a lot of the division that exists and it's continuing to be sown throughout the world is religious based. And that's why I think overall, I imagine that every year more people die from religious based violence than religion saves. I don't know how you
Probably. Oh, and I
calculate.
want to hit this comment because this is great. I once had Mormons knocking at my door. They said they would wash my dishes if I let them in to talk about Jesus. I said no. When my ex-wife came by, I told her the Mormons volunteered to wash my dishes, and I didn't accept. She said I was a moron for turning them down. And I look at that in like the same way as like if you're in traffic and you've got someone that comes up and like tries to spray off your windshield or whatever, like yeah, they're doing it for free or whatever, but there's this tacit agreement that you're gonna have to do something for them back. And like I'd be the same way. Like, you know what? I'll do my own damn dishes. I don't really want to hear about Jesus for the next 20 minutes.
Well, look, so a lot of people are saying religion's fine. It should be a good thing. What if you're fan and think about where you are locationally, geographically, where you are located. Do you think somebody on the other side of the world might agree with you? Somebody who's currently in a town that's being attacked for religious reasons, or how about who do you know that's Jewish, where still believes in their religion but were religiously prosecuted, or isn't there some stuff going on in like China? I mean, there's stuff going on all over the world.
Well, so right now, well, the Chinese persecution of the Uyghurs, so the Uyghurs are in the western part of China and they're Muslim and they're kind of their own culture that's separate from Chinese. And so I don't think that what China is doing to the Uyghurs is really a religious issue because China is a religious. It's a secular state and like an aggressively secular state.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to eliminate the Uyghurs because they're religious and they want them to be fully indoctrinated into like the CCP mindset. But if you look at
religion itself, there is what's causing the issue.
no, actually,
No.
China religion, it's not really the religion that's causing it. It's that they have their own separate culture, which happens to be religious, but it's that they are not really Chinese in the traditional sense. Whereas if you look at places like India, where you've got the Hindu-Muslim conflict, where the Hindus are in control of government and they're making it really difficult for Muslims to do a lot of things. Same thing with Sikhs in India. Or if you look at Burma right now with the Buddhist persecution of the Rohingya Muslim population there, or in Africa, well, there's a conflict in Kenya. No, I'm sorry, Ethiopia, between Ethiopia and Eritrea. I don't know if that has anything to do with religion, but I think for me, I would have to answer the question that I asked. I think that hold on. I want to answer this comment first, actually.
Okay.
Blondes Have More Fun says, what drives me crazy is what makes a Christian a Christian. There's so many different beliefs. And so I think she makes a good point of how you can look at, even just within Christianity, you can go from like Pentecostals to like Unitarians, and they're all reading the same book and drawing wildly different conclusions and wildly different behavioral like systems out of it.
But
and
think these are the religions that exist now that we're talking about, and this Christianity stems from Jewish people who believed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, and then even they can't agree on certain things, so they're starting to splinter off. But there have been many religions over many hundreds of years, several thousands of years, that have started, existed, and died, and are no longer sacred, but they're more like mythology. And if you told somebody during whatever times that believed in Greek mythology, or the Egyptians, that in 400 years their religion wasn't going to exist anymore, they wouldn't believe it.
no, they probably would have killed you, actually.
They probably would have killed you. So the fact that we're having these conversations, and this is all I'm asking people to do when it comes to religion, is just zoom out a little bit. So when I'm asking and James asks, is religion, does it have a greater good, or is it, is it overall good, or is it overall bad? I'm just saying the simple answer is it's overall good, but then zoom out and look at all the badness that's happening because of different religions. And that's where, to me, I'm just like, well, how do we solve this problem? Like, what's the fucking solution to that?
Well, and that's kind of close to my answer as well, is that I think overall the influence of religion in some is bad because it leads to people abandoning critical thinking in favor of religion, and it causes divisiveness and separate, like yeah, it causes divisiveness, war, and killing other people because they don't believe what you do. Where I look at the positives of religion as not necessarily tied to religion. You don't need to have religion to be a good person. You can just take good actions and not need religion to justify
But I
them.
think there's also some crazy negatives that are built into certain religions. Let me just hit the TikTok comments real quick. It should be about grace, not legalism. It depends on each person. We have religion in the U.S. trying to control women's bodies. It's not
Mhm.
in other countries. Again, it's about grace and not legalism. But you have religions that paint. Again, like I'm going to come back to the gays. Like that's you have these religions that paint them as if they are the worst thing in the world, and now and that was a decade or two ago even, and now some of those religions are coming back around and saying, you know what, I think we'll let these people into our religion because we need more people. I
Well,
think.
even the Pope said something in relation to gay people. Um, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, "Who am I to judge?"
Yeah, which is a weird statement for the Pope to make.
Well, this particular Pope has been a lot more progressive on a lot of issues.
Yeah, but the Catholic Church banned condoms for a long time,
Still banned, I'm pretty sure.
which is
It's a great policy for making more Catholics, though.
it's a great and same thing with being against abortion.
Well, so to the Catholic Church's credit here, their stance on abortion is at least internally consistent because at least the Catholic Church is also against the death penalty and they're against killing in general. So if they're going to say that abortion is murder or whatever, but they're also against all other forms of killing, then at least they're being consistent. What I hate is when I see like justifying one type of behavior but not another, and
That
they're
makes
really the same thing, but you're accepting one but not the other. So at least like Catholics
well.
are being consistent there.
Let me ask you a question. What are your thoughts on Noah's Ark, creationism, and evolution?
Noah's Ark is a fun story.
I mean, I know what your thoughts are.
Noah's Ark is a fun story. Creationism is handy to explain things, but I think that when it comes to evolution or whatever, you just look at it and evolution logically makes a ton of sense.
We have fossil
Where
evidence.
yeah, we have fossil evidence, but also you just think like something that's better at doing something is more likely to survive and be able to reproduce and pass on its genes to the next generation, which are then going to have that trait already built in. So you're going to be selecting for whatever's best for a given situation over generations and generations. And when you think about how long life has been on the earth,
It's not very long.
oh no, it's incredibly long.
Well, are we talking about what type of life are we talking about?
I'm talking about any type of life. I'm talking about single cell organisms are like 3.5 billion years old. That is so incredibly long that for there to be progress from there to where we are now.
Well, okay, so when you're talking about life, I'm thinking you're talking about mammal-like, bipedal.
Well, mammals have been around for millions and millions of years. Mammals existed during the time of the dinosaurs.
Okay, but let's back it up but humans weren't around when there were dinosaurs, or
Unless you believe in creationism.
unless you believe in creationism. So what I'm saying is that we have dinosaur bones and evidence, and we can do they carbon? They're able to carbon date that stuff.
No, carbon dating the carbon 14 has a half-life of I believe about 7,000 years. So you're going to run out of half-lives way earlier than 65 million years, which is when the dinosaurs went away.
Okay. But what I'm talking about is we have fossil evidence and
Right. And so, well, here's the problem with creationism's answer there is that if God created everything, then God could have just created the fossils, and God could have created the fossils to appear to be 65 million years old. But this is really just a version of what's known in philosophy as the last Thursday problem, which is
okay, I'm not familiar with that.
all right. So the last Thursday problem is, imagine God created the universe last Thursday, and he created you on last Thursday and created you with all your memories and everything else last Thursday. Last Wednesday didn't exist. How can you prove that last Wednesday did exist, or that you were just created on last Thursday? And it's I can't remember the name of the type of question this is, but it's one that you can't fundamentally prove right or wrong, because if you're created last Thursday with all your memories as of last Thursday, then you would have no way of being able to prove that whether or not last Wednesday existed.
All right, it sounds like we have a bit of an audio issue. But I get what you're saying. To me, it's a bit of a flat Earth type argument.
Well, no, flat Earth is easily disprovable. Just fly a balloon high enough.
Sure, but the same argument is go look at a fossil.
Right, but the thing is, with the fossil, you can make the argument that God created that fossil to appear 65 million years old. But if you're a flat earther, like, it's pretty easy to disprove flat Earth. You don't even need to get into a balloon. Like, I saw a picture of power lines on a lake in Louisiana, where the power lines just go straight across the horizon, and you see the power lines get shorter and shorter because of the curvature of the Earth.
Well, that's an argument that you and I understand, but a flat earther may not understand that.
Well, no, we can't reach them. But
the question is there life on other planets? It can be proven because there have been mummies found which lived and died years ago. What can be proven because there have been mummies? So this is from Casey Fowler. She said, is there life on other planets? It can be proven because there have been mummies found which lived and died years ago. Casey, I'm curious, what are you asking can be proven? But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's the same last Thursday argument. That was just someone.
Yes, in Cami case is making an analogy of, like, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it make a sound?
Oh, she's saying your life the last Thursday. But she's saying it can be proven that it didn't exist because they're mummies that have lived and died years ago. But the argument to that was those mummies were made
last Thursday.
That's the argument. The argument is that those mummies were also made last Thursday to appear as if they lived and died years ago.
Yeah. So the last Thursday problem is irrefutable.
Yeah.
Because you can just create everything on last Thursday as it existed last Thursday, and there's no way for you to prove that it existed any further back, because it was created to look like it existed further back. And so I look at a lot of religious claims in the similar vein as the last Thursday problem. I guess, like, for another issue that I have with religion is, like, teaching young children religious beliefs before they have the capability of critical thought.
We've talked about this before, and this is exactly, and I think as far as in any other podcast episode that we've talked about, this is as far as we've gone into religion, and this is what I said. But go ahead, I'll let you articulate it.
Well, I just think that, like, religion should be a choice that people get to make. You get to analyze what it's saying and say, does this make sense? Do I think that this is the right thing for me? Will this positively impact my life? Is this a group or a set of beliefs that I want to be a part of? But if you're a parent and you're teaching your child from basically the day that they can understand language, a certain type of religion, then you're never giving them a chance to be able to critically analyze anything when it comes to religion, because children will intrinsically trust their parents, and
And
that means that the kids never had a chance to be able to critically think about religion because it's all they've ever known. And I think that that's doing a disservice to the kid and to society as a whole, because people should be able to make choices. And by teaching someone that young these things, you're depriving them of the choice.
well, with a major tenet of that religion, and here's the point that I've made in past episodes, is that questioning the religion itself isn't allowed, that you have to have absolute faith, and that's part of the religion. And just questioning it isn't, you can't employ critical thinking. And Ross just made a good comment. I think if religion is a paid membership club, no one would be religious, but that's not true, because religion is a paid membership club and people have to pay into their church.
Well, blondes have more funds coming back and saying when they get older, they'll be able to choose just as you and I have. And I would respond and say that the way that you're raised can have a tremendous effect on your later life. And it can be very difficult for someone to make a choice as an adult that isn't affected by their upbringing. And
Well, I mean, if you're raised in a Catholic or Christian household, it's very unlikely, very, very, and I'm sure statistics can back this up. Rosh is actually probably not backing this statistic up. But if you're raised in a Christian household, it's very unlikely you're going to become Muslim.
right,
If
and
you're raised
that's
in a
my
Muslim
point.
household, it's very unlikely you're going to become Jewish.
Is that if you're raised in such a way that one religion, and especially like one sect of a religion, is all you've ever known, technically, once you get to be an adult, do you have the choice to leave that religion? Technically, yes, but that's ignoring all the factors that weigh against being able to make that choice on your own, because you're going to have to find a way of escaping that thought on your own. And if you're only surrounded by that thought, how are you going to be able to make another choice?
So I want to add this.
Think about it like this. It's if you're trying to run a mile race and like the race to make that free choice is a mile long. Well, if you were indoctrinated from age 2 about a certain religion, then it's like you started 2 laps behind, because you need to get back to 0 to be able to make a choice before you can start analyzing other things.
Back to zero is not thinking that your religion is the only way.
Right.
And having an open mind. Back to
Like
zero is doing open
if
mind.
you think of like a
You
0 to
already-
100 scale of like 0 being not religious at all, 50% being like I'll choose whatever religion makes the most sense to me, and 100 being fully committed.
Well,
if you have a
but-
kid that's raised from age 2, they're probably at like 85 or 90 by the time they reach 18.
with a bias. They're 85 or 90 with a bias to one direction or the other. So if they have to go 100 to a different religion, that's much less likely to.
Right.
We got
So answering Cammy Cakes real quick, I was drinking a whiskey sour with scotch and bourbon and maple syrup. And now I'm also drinking a beer.
Good for you. But the first drink, much better drink. But when you're making mixed drinks, sometimes you gotta supplement with beer.
Well, it was a double for the mixed drink.
A lot of times when I go out and I get like margaritas or something, I'll get like a Dos Equis or a Modelo or something like that, just to slow me down a little bit in between the harder cocktails. And yeah, like you said, yours is a double. So, look, we're gonna have to wrap. One thing I did want to just touch on before we close is we've been talking about like Neuralink and having technology in your brain and being able to record memories. We haven't gotten into any of the transference of consciousness discussions.
Technology is nowhere near where it needs to be yet.
I'm not saying it is, but the whole conversation around the transference of consciousness.
I want to answer blondes have more fun.
Right, but hold up 1 second though. Is what I'm saying is when you take your consciousness and it leaves your body and then maybe comes back to your body, or it separates and
Well, if you have transfer of consciousness, that's effectively being able to live forever.
That's my point. But is there an element that where you have to what's the movie with Scarlett Johansson and Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale? The Illusionist, I think is the name of the movie. And basically he's able to duplicate himself, but every time he duplicates himself, he's duplicating himself for the magic trick. But every time he duplicates himself, he has to kill the previous version. So every time he signs up for the trick, it's a death sentence. And I think that's where, like, if you really want to, like, to me, that's where it gets a bit dicey. I'm like, there's got to be, I can't imagine consciousness going from my brain into a computer and then back into something else. Or once it leaves, once you duplicate my consciousness, what happens to my consciousness in my mind when it goes into the computer?
Well, it's just like copying a program.
And that's exactly where
it's just now there's two of you.
Now there's two of you. So
that's just too many.
So you can't live forever though, because you yourself ultimately end up dying.
No, I'm going to come back to the last Thursday problem.
Which one of you gets locked in the dunk tank under the stage in The Illusionist? Your current self. So every time you sign up for that trick, it's a death.
Not necessarily. You can make the clone go in there.
but then you don't have those new the new biology there. So then so ultimately you're going to die because your hardware is aging.
Yeah. Real quick to answer, Blondes have more fun and then we can wrap. Yeah. Right. So she's saying like you get to make your own decisions. She grew up going to church, and then as she got older, she understood things better and she made her own choices and decisions. That's great. But I think that she's probably more the exception than the rule. And you still have this, you're fighting against in these beliefs that were indoctrinated to you early. And it can be really hard to be able to overcome those.
I think, Cheryl, what we're saying is that, yeah, that's somewhat common, the scenario that you're in. But just like James said, you are the exception to the rule. I think there's considerably fewer people. And there's another comment on TikTok. I'll read it to you because it's really similar, from Zupi saying, I grew up in a racist home, in my opinion, and I completely the opposite now. Politics, ethics, etc. I believe we have a sense of choice and a sense, and as a human species, we are smart. And we can choose to be a good human or not, but that's not always, I think a lot.
Well, I think it's great that you were able to escape a racist house and be able to realize it for what it was, but that, like, you were already starting off in a racist environment, so you had to make progress to get to neutral before you could even be not racist.
Yeah, that's what James is saying, that you're starting with a bias. So you're not starting at zero like everybody else. You're starting at -30 or negative.
So you had to do more work to escape racism than someone who wasn't raised in a racist household.
Yeah, I think you get a really good point, both of you.
And I'm applauding being able to escape toxic thinking. That's great.
But how do you think racism endures? How do you think it still exists?
Oh, that's a completely separate episode.
Well, but a lot of people aren't getting out of that construct, or they're being indoctrinated into it.
I blame white people.
Probably pretty responsible for racism across the globe. You're probably right. On that note, though, James, let's wrap up. I bid you a good evening.
Yeah, good episode, good interaction tonight. Really like the comments.
It was good. You guys that are watching us, we definitely appreciate the comments. It gives us, sometimes James' conversation and mine gets a little dry, so we love having you guys. We just got to figure out the best and most efficient way to do it is open up a call-in feature so we can get some calls in the line. But we got to figure that out. So we have Rosh in the background. Rosh Galeb, thank you very much.
Doing great.
Helping us produce this episode. And Rosh is forwarding the Instagram and Facebook comments. So if you guys are not watching on Instagram or Facebook for the live videos, you should be, so we can stay tuned. However, if you guys are watching us now, please make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast, available across all audio podcast platforms, and you subscribe on YouTube. The more subscriptions we get on YouTube, pretty soon we'll be able to do a live on YouTube too. So that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it. But thank you guys for joining, and adios. See ya.
Cheers.
That concludes the episode. Let me know what you thought, how we did, what we missed on religion, and I will see you next time.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.